So I've got the exterior of the transmission painted, and I've put the little rubber breather cap back on. After having cleaned this up and everything, I started noticing that I'm having some oil. Some of the transmission oil is leaking. This one's leaking, this one's leaking, this one's moist. A little bit of moisture there. Tiny bit around this one and this one. So all the way around, that gasket is showing signs that it needs to be replaced. These are 12mm bolts. Good. Wow. You can hear air escape out of that. These have some sort of sealant on them. I was going to say I might have to take the whole thing off. So I'm cleaning off the inside of this, and I'm going to clean off the inside of that dude as well. When you put this back together, make sure you don't leave a lot of nasty paper fiber behind. You don't want that to be in there. It'll just gum up the works. Amazingly, the old paper gasket came right off. Clean as a whistle. It's the first time I've ever had one come off that clean. Allow to dry 1 to 2 minutes. Okay, so I have learned that anaerobic sealant makes a good gasket. That's what you should use on this because it'll cure without air. I'm going to temporarily put this in place with a couple of bolts that I've cleaned. Now these have to be sealed as well because they do penetrate into the transmission. That's why we were getting leakage here, was because the seal on these bolts was gone. So I'm going to gently press this into place. Basically, you just want to get it in there to where it seats. You don't want to press the gasket out. There's that contact. And then I'm going to do one up here. I'm going to let that harden up. And then I'm going to seal these bolts.
So I've got to put thread locker on these guys. Whoa.
That guy got tight. Oh, that's because he's got that gasket material on him.
Yeah. Really do want it to get in there and seal this thing. It's got all of them. I'm going to tighten them to 12 foot-pounds. Got it. That dude is now done. All I would have to do is reinstall my throw-out bearing. All right, so the spring is in place. Transmission is now complete. Voila. And I believe the rain is just starting. So I went today and grabbed myself a new through bolt. This is going to go for my transmission mount. So I went ahead and tightened these guys up to 21 foot-pounds. This is your rear engine mounting connection. They call it the rear engine mount, but it's actually attached to the transmission. And I'm leaving this a little bit loose so that when I get it up there get it back in position, I can move it around if I need to and make some adjustments, and I'll torque it once I'm underneath the vehicle.
it's just not balanced enough. Yeah. Okay. Let's set it right here for a second. I'm gonna pick it straight up. Just go there. I'm just gonna go under. So what I'm thinking of doing is just wiggling it back enough to where we can seat this on the splines, and then I can spin it and line it up appropriately to where the marks are. And then we can try to push this thing back in and get it to where it needs to be. Oh, if my neck does not go into full-on cramps.
Yeah. It's
Actually, it probably won't stay on the splines because as we pull it back, it's going to pull it back off again.
you're about an inch away now. This thing's about to come off here of the spline. Okay. Well,
Okay, it's up and off. Okay, good. That's what I want right there.
yeah, it's starting to sprinkle.
There's that.
Felt some drops.
Okay. I'll pull this back a little bit more. There it goes.
If you get this before it starts raining,
It'll be amazing.
It'll be amazing.
Come on, man.
There it went.
Okay. Now, I am moving free.
Boy, that is close to it.
You're going to have to pump it up.
Just a little though,
Yeah.
because it looks like it's level with that thing there. Yeah, it's going.
And across. That one and that one. Okay.
So
And that goes to...
what, does transmission still have to be slid up or what?
That one. Hang on one sec. That's shiny. And that.
I hate that the camera kicked out when we were installing the transmission. I had already run through all my batteries and the card filled up and rain was coming, so I didn't have much choice but to keep going. It was a bit of a bear, to say the least. It was actually really quite a wrestling match. But it is obviously doable because I got it back up there with the help of my father. Amazingly, the splines lined up for the shaft that goes into the clutch. I made a mistake and did not match mark my drive shafts. Always mark the drive shaft and mark your connector. That way you don't have this stress of worrying that you don't have them lined up, because I've been told by a couple of friends and some other car folks that it really does matter. You need to line up how the shafts are coming off. They need to line up going back on. Hopefully everything goes back together the way it should and it'll crank without too much of an issue. Last day, it's kind of exciting. Let's torque this guy to 53 foot-pounds. There it is. Yeah. I need to fill the transmission. I went ahead and installed the starter, and that went fairly easily. I cleaned off all my connections underneath here with a wire brush and then got everything connected. All the keys are in place that hold the cables onto the bracket. The bracket is attached. All of these guys are tightened up and attached. One thing of note, don't forget to reconnect your ground strap to the bottom of the driven gear connection in here, and there's my speedometer cable hooked back up, so that's all in good shape. So now I'm going to focus on putting in my new slave cylinder for the clutch. So I'm going to get this guy installed. It is an ASIN brand, just like the original. These guys are 12mm bolts, and there is no torque specs, so you just tighten it down. And you're going into aluminum, so you don't want to over tighten it, for sure. Good enough. Okay. Okay, here's that. I'm going to pop the plug out of this guy. See if I can break this free. Dang it. It is rusted in there. We'll let that sit for a few. I used vice grips on the body of it, as well as a small pair of vice grips on the actual nipple up here. So we'll see if this will come loose. There'll be some brake fluid that comes spewing out, I'm sure. Ugh. Okay. I'm gonna see if I can figure out how to immediately get it back in. Yeah, to there. There we go. And that went in without too much hassle. Yeah, that takes care of my clutch slave cylinder. It's done. So the only thing I have to do now is just bleed that, and I should be good. Okay, so the next thing I've got to do is go ahead and make sure that the transfer is drained and refilled. I thought the camera was rolling and it wasn't rolling. I'm really upset. I wish you'd seen that. This transmission bolt right here has been completely frozen on, basically as if it was welded on. It's been a bear, and I've been wrestling with it off and on all day long, trying not to focus on it too much because it's making me mad. So I just decided before I run back out to the auto parts store, I'd try it one more time. And one of the tweaks that was suggested was take the torch, and I heated all around the outside of the aluminum and really just kind of put some heat to it. Then took my channel locks. This thing is basically destroyed at this stage. This bolt is so soft, the metal is so soft, that it just wasn't working. I wedged my feet against this bottom brace and just yanked this guy on, and it finally let go. Finally, it's spinning. I guess that just proves that perseverance and patience will somehow prevail. One of the things I need to do is to go ahead and bleed the clutch slave cylinder, and I'm going to have my assistant jump up in there, and he's going to depress the clutch, and we're going to bleed it just like you would bleed brakes. So after you bleed the clutch, you go through that process of getting the air out of the line. You'll want to top off your brake fluid again.
So I'm going to add just a little bit more. It did go down a little bit. I'll have to check it again after driving some for another couple weeks or something. So keep in mind you only want to use .3 on this, and once you open one of these cans up of brake fluid, they only have a limited lifespan, so you don't want to store that for too long. So I'm basically done. Transmission's all completely sealed up. Everything is in good shape. I've got the battery reconnected. Essentially what represents a couple of weeks worth of piecemeal on again, off again work. I've been able to finally put it all back together, and now's the moment of truth. I need to get it off of the tire cribs, then I can crank it and make sure everything is as it should be, and maybe drive it down the road. We'll see if I have enough time to do all this before the sun goes down. It's on the ground. I'm so excited. Now we have to just see if everything functions properly. This should be very interesting. You have to understand this is the first time I've ever done anything this major mechanically on any vehicle ever. And so it makes me really nervous this very first crank up. Not being a trained mechanic, I'm just going on what I can read and find out online. So this is very nerve-wracking to think about cranking the van up for the very first time. So we'll see how it goes. Now for the transmission, see if it works properly. Wow. First gear. Clutch is really buttery, which is really awesome. So, as far as I can tell, the clutch, everything is operating, functioning exactly as it should. There's no noise, there's no excessive rumble, no shake, so I think I got my drive shafts put back on properly, so that's good. And it shifts like a dream. It's, you know, for somebody working solo who has no experience at all, it is a little daunting, and you definitely are going to have some extra hands in there when it comes to lifting that transmission back into place and wrestling the bolts in while you're holding it up there. Definitely some touch and go moments when it comes to all that. But all in all, it worked beautifully. Thanks for coming along for the ride. Hope you guys have a great evening, and I will see you the next time around.